in crime in the back, Mark Sherman. Mark is the one behind the bullhorn there. Mark and I, mostly Mark, quite frankly, have worked really hard to put this event together. I can't imagine how many miles and blood, sweat, and tears, hopefully not much blood, Mark has shed putting this together, and I want to acknowledge his hard work on behalf of all of us that are here. I also want to recognize, I mentioned that there are 16 indivisible chapters within Congressional District 7. And the 16 chapters have participated in the coalition work to varying degrees over the last year. But notably, the chapters that have been most instrumental in these kinds of activities would be Northern Indivisible. That's my group, my Indivisible chapter. We're based over in Ironwood, Michigan. Don't let the Michigan moniker throw you off. We work in Iron County, Wisconsin, as well as Gogebic County, Michigan. So we straddle both sides of the Montreal River, which is only about that wide, so you don't have to cross much water to get from one state to the other. Also, Northern Lights Indivisible, they're based in Rhinelander. Also, Ashland Indivisible, obviously based up in Ashland, and Rice Lake Indivisible, which is Mark's group southwest of here. So these 4 chapters in particular, but the other 12 chapters also have been very active in our coalition work, and it would be not fair of me not to acknowledge them and to mention their names. All right, I'm going to do an overview of the program so you will know what to expect during this time together. I want to lay out a couple of expectations of you. First of all, there won't be any direct questions from you to the candidates. That will be handled in a mechanism that I'll describe here in a couple of minutes. There will not be any interplay between or among the candidates. In other words, it's not a debate. They're not going to rebut each other, etc. They are going to answer your questions. As you notice, we have not allowed campaign materials in the room. They're out in the hall. We want to keep this a ideological safe place, if you will. We will not allow loud, rude, oral comments, either written or verbal. So if you would just follow those simple rules, we would be most appreciative.
Jerry.
Yes.
There might have been some of us that might have put some materials on the table. I apologize, and I think I'm not alone.
Okay. Well, my bad for not monitoring that. Ginger's indicated that there is some material on the tables. Pretend they're not there, and life is still good. Right. No worries. We did not give you that rule ahead of time, so my bad, Ginger. But thanks for reminding me about that. The intent of this forum is for our candidates to be specific in their answers. We're not looking for generalized talking points. It'll be my job when an answer is being given that if, in my opinion, the candidate is not drilling down far enough on their answer, I'm going to call them on it. So that you get the best information, the most specific information. That will be my job. And the reason I say that is that whoever wins this race for this congressional district, they work for us. And this is nothing less than an interview session by you, the hiring agents, for someone that is going to go to work for you. So this is a big interview session. The more information you have, the more specific their answers are, the better you'll be positioned to hire the right person. So that's where we're coming from with this. And you're going to be involved in that process tonight. And some of it starts with me to encourage candidates to be very specific in their responses, and I will do the best that I can to do that. All right. Some doors. All right, so with all of that said, I want to introduce the really cool folks that have joined us tonight. From your left to the right, boy, if I can see that far, we have Chris Armstrong, we have Niina Baum, Fred Clark, Ginger Murray, and we are very, very happy that they are here. Now, what they have before them up here on the table are two sets of materials. One is a candidate profile. This is a profile developed by the coalition I described earlier. This is a general job description of what we believe a candidate should portray in his or her day-to-day doings as a potential congressperson. This is how that candidate should behave. And these are the skill sets that they should employ as they operationalize that profile. So they've got that information up here. And when we get to the correct place within the program, and I'll tell you when those points are, we're going to ask them to speak to the profile, and we're going to ask them to respond to the statements, the skill set statements that grow out of the profile that the coalition has developed over the last year. Now, as they answer the skill set questions, you have an assessment form. If you don't have it, we'll make sure you get one right now. And so, as a candidate answers or speaks to a skill set statement, you will have the ability, using that assessment sheet, to rate them. I think it's 1 through 5 on there. And I'll explain in more detail when we get to the point of actually using the sheet. And we're going to collect those sheets from you so that we will have input from you about how well they did in relation to what skills they should employ and the profile out of which they should operate as a potential congressperson. We'll talk more about that later. But that's going to be your job as the interviewers, if you will, using that assessment sheet. There will be 2 Q&A periods. During this first hour, we're going to ask the candidates to respond to the skill set statements. And each one of them will have one to respond to. You'll use the score sheet to assess that response. We'll then take a 10-minute potty break. Why did y'all ask for that? On behalf of all of us, we will have the Ginger Murray Memorial, not memorial, the Ginger Murray potty break dedication or something like that. That was you that asked for it, right, Ginger? Was that Ginger or Niina?
It was Niina, but I'll...
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we followed through and we built in a bathroom break between the question and answer periods of about 10 minutes. When you come back from the break, we will then collect questions that you will write on those forms that you have there, they will draw a question literally from a hat or a box that Mark will bring up, and we're going to ask them to answer that question that you have written during the second hour. During that portion, you won't need the skill assessment, the assessment sheet. The assessment sheet only relates to the first hour. All right. Questions about any of that? That's a lot of stuff I've thrown at you. Is that relatively clear? Yes, sir.
I do not have an assessment sheet.
All right, we'll get you one right now. My friend Tim is going to bring one to you. All right. Each candidate at the beginning, as soon as I stop running my mouth, is going to have a 1-minute introduction of himself or herself. At the end of the program, during the program, they will have 2 minutes to respond to the skill set statements, and they'll have 2 minutes each to respond to the questions that you write. At the end of the program, each candidate will have 3 minutes to do a closing for themselves. That'll be fairly a free-for-all, but we're going to, again, ask them to speak within the profile and the statements. We're trying to keep it real and specific. Now, at 8 o'clock, we will go into mix and mingle time. We'll close out the formal part of the session. We're going to ask them to come down and just have one-on-one or small group conversations with you for a period of time at 8 o'clock, and that will end on its own. There's not a time frame there. Questions? All right, I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to pick a person in this room that you do not know. And I'm going to ask you to go to that person, stand shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe, eyeball to eyeball, introduce yourself, first, last name, and simply do a fist bump as a greeting. Starting now.
Hello, sir.
Sam West.
We can pick it up like that. No, I know. Nice to meet you.
I kind of feel like I should be humming the Jeopardy tune. How does that? I forget how that goes. Right, something like that. Okay. All right, classmates, if you come back to your seats. That's just a way to get up and get a little bit of blood flowing in your feet and other parts. All right. I'm going to turn it over to the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves. We'll start at the far end with Chris. We have a timekeeper in the back. That's my friend Mark Sherman, and he is going to be strict about the time. So you have a microphone there. Chris, as soon as you start talking, your minute will start. Go. Oh, is the mic on? I can help you.
Hello. It is now. All right, howdy everybody. Chris Armstrong from New Richmond, Wisconsin. I grew up north of a small village called Star Prairie on the Apple River, world famous for inner tubing. I went to school in Amory, then moved on to pursue my degree at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Had a little too much fun, dropped out, became a teenage dirtbag. I decided to finish my degree at the University of Minnesota, which I got in 1989 in astrophysics. I've been programming computers since I've been about 13, so instead of continuing my research into cosmology and the universe, decided to continue in IT, and I've been running my own IT company for the past 35 plus years. I got 2 kids. They're now 32 and 30, and married to my second wife, Diana, and we live happily in Richmond.
All right, Niina.
I grew up on a dairy farm in Price County in the small town of Catawba, Wisconsin. I'm the only candidate that has lived almost nearly their entire life in the district. I went to college up in Ashland, Wisconsin at Northland College. And after that, I knew I wanted to live in the district, but it was hard to find a job in my career path. So I moved out for 2 years. I was in Green Bay for a year, in Alaska for a year, and finally found that job back in the Northwoods that I could really build into a career. And I landed in Rhinelander at Nicolay College and was there for a number of years before starting my own business about 2.5 years ago. I now own a marketing agency, and I help small and medium-sized businesses with their digital marketing. When I moved to Rhinelander, I struggling to connect with my peers, so I co-founded Northwoods Young Professionals, an organization, and it really actually impacted helping keep young individuals up in the Northwoods. A lot of young people were moving up there, and after a year they weren't making those connections, and so then they were moving away. Oh gosh, my minute already up. Going fast. I also on the Rotary Board and Town Planning Commissioner.
Fred.
Hi, my name is Fred Clark. In 36 plus years in Wisconsin, I've been a forester, a conservationist, a community leader, former state legislator, proud father, and I make a hell of a blueberry pie with an all butter crust. I think we're at an extraordinary moment in the future of our democracy. And there is no guarantee of what happens next. And the actions of this administration and our federal government in the last year and a half have touched the lives of everyone in this country. Almost every one of them in a negative way. It's up to all of us to decide what happens next. There are no guarantees, but the only thing that is certain is that if we don't work together effectively, strategically, with all of the strength and force of advocacy and citizenship that we can muster, our future is gravely at risk. I want to be part of a new federal government that respects human rights, respects human dignity, that's fundamentally moral, and that honors the Constitution. I look forward to talking about that tonight.
Ginger.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'd like to start by pointing out that I bring a constitution for all of you, if you would like one, because I think that's what government is about. There were over 250 years ago, 250 actually, like-minded folks like yourselves decided they didn't want to be in a country with a king, told what religion to practice. They decided they wanted the power to the people. And so we have a constitution that we need to follow and Bill of Rights. I was born in Eau Claire and raised in Forest County. I have lived 50 of my 56 years of life here in the state of Wisconsin, most in the district. After law school, I returned to Forest County where I served as a city attorney, town attorney, family court commissioner, advocating or making decisions in the best interest of children. That would be my focus in Washington, D.C., defending democracy and the best interest of children. I'm here tonight to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, they're timely. I should have noted earlier that all 8 of the candidates were invited to be here tonight. I personally sent an initial invitation giving all of the details to each candidate, and then there were 2 follow-up reminders from me to each one of the 8 candidates. So there were 3 shots at the apple. And for whatever reason, 4 are not here, clearly. But I want you to know that all 8 were invited, because part of our responsibility at this point in our coalition work is to be nonpartisan. We may be partisan later on as we get through this whole assessment stuff, but now we want to bring to you as much information as we can in a nonpartisan way from all of the candidates. So, that's it. The name of the sheet on your tables where you will write your question that we'll collect later is what's on your mind today. So that's an opportunity for you to pen a question. We'll collect them later and we'll get them up before the candidates. All right, we're now going to go into question period 1. And this is where we will bring up to the candidates one of the skill set statements. They will draw from that collection of skill set statements. So each one of them will have one. Each one of them will have 2 minutes to talk about their own individual skill sets as a potential congressperson in relation to that skill set that our coalition has written. So Mark, are you bringing those up or someone else bringing them up?
You're up there.
Oh, they're here already? Oh, okay, so each one of you has your own question now? Okay, got it. So,
I have all
Yeah, we
of
have
them.
a
I have
list.
a list of all of them.
all right.
They're to pick one.
Yeah, I thought, okay.
They're to pick one.
Yeah, we'll do it that way. All right, so, we'll do this way. You have, I believe you had 8 questions. There may be 8, 9, or 10.
10.
Okay, so there are 10 questions. You all down in the audience have a copy of those 10 questions. I'm going to ask each candidate, starting with Chris down on the end, to pick one of them, tell you which one he is going to address, and then give him 2 minutes to address that question. They don't have it? Okay, my bad. All right.
Here's 3 extra.
That's okay. All right, my bad, folks. I thought you all had copies of the questions out there. So here's the deal. The candidates up here have a copy of all 10 questions. Starting with Chris, he is going to pick one of the 10. He's going to read his statement to you, and then he's going to have 2 minutes to address it. So, Chris, which one are you picking? Please read it to the audience, and then take 2 minutes to address that particular skill set.
Well, I'll do listening.
You need the mic.
All right, I will do listening. Tell us about a moment when you realized you needed to stop talking and ask more questions. Of course, that may be a challenge for us up here because we do a bit of talking, sometimes on autopilot. But what I remember many years ago, probably at least 20 years ago, so nothing to do with politics. So I run my own IT company, and one of my responsibilities, in addition to being a consultant that delivers the services, also in sales, and trying to generate leads and build relationships with customers. And I remember having lunch with a prospective client where we were talking about their project and perhaps how I might be able to help them out. And at the end of the lunch, I looked down at my plate and saw that I had not even started eating. And so I took that as a good lesson learned, because people that know me, I like to eat, gotta eat, gonna fall over. And I was like, wow, what's up with that? I realized I didn't shut up for the whole freaking lunch. And I probably, let the prospective customer have, 3 or 4 words, and so that was kind of a good cue that, when I'm in such situations, I'm like, look at your plate, Chris. Have you eaten any of your food? As a basis for, again, a big part of what I think it means to be successful in life and in business and in politics is not talking all the time, and sometimes, Chris, shut the F up. And so that's, again, a lesson I learned some time ago. Not so sure how well I follow it all the time, but I keep it in mind in all my interactions.
Okay, Niina, tell us which skill set statement you are going to react to. Then you have 2 minutes to do that reaction. Niina.
Okay, I'm going to go with representation. So give an example of how you've made yourself accessible to people who don't normally engage in politics. So I want to start by sharing about what I've done during this campaign. I actually just finished biking 400 miles through the 7th Congressional District to do exactly this, to engage with people and to hear from them and to slow down and to really get to know these communities. I went through bigger communities and smaller communities that normally people probably wouldn't come through because there wouldn't be that many voters in there. But listening and hearing every perspective and every voice and engaging in this way really allowed me to have some really meaningful conversations with people along the way. I've also actively been visiting and touring and working in different industries to really understand them and learn about them. I feel that politics ends up being quite performative a lot of the time. You pose for a picture in front of a cow or a tractor, but you don't know the first thing about them, right? So I've actively engaged in these different industries. I spent a morning milking cows with Doing It Wrong Dairy. I joined TNT Timber and Viewer Lumber and spent the morning with them in a Ponce harvester, learning what the loggers are doing every single day. I went and toured Lake Country Cheese and really got to see the behind the scenes of how the different cheeses are made up here. And there's a whole list of different organizations that I have visited and met with, including UW Trout Lake Station, an incredible research station up here in the Northwoods that has been around for 100 years and has some of the most longest standing water-based research in the country. And so that is how I have been actively engaged in getting to know the communities and connecting with people in industries that maybe aren't always involved in our politics.
Before we go to Fred, let me say this. I'm going to go back to addressing the assessment sheet that each one of you has. And so we've had 2 reactions to 2 different skill sets. We heard from Chris, we heard from Niina. So on your assessment sheet, at the top, you will see the statement to which the 2 of them reacted. And then you will see their names down the left-hand side of that sheet. And then you will see a place to score their answer, 1 to 5. So what I'm going to do is to pause now to allow you to do those 2 assessments before we go to Fred. So you're now scoring the reaction to these specific statements from Chris and from Niina. And again, we will collect these at the end as a way for you to give the coalition feedback about what you thought of their answers. This is where the school teacher comes back to me. When you are done, please place your pencils or pens down. Okay, we will now go to Fred. We'll follow the same process. Fred is going to tell you which statement he's going to react to. You'll then find that statement on your sheet. He'll have 2 minutes to respond, and then at the end of that, we'll have a pause, and you will rate Fred's comments to that particular statement. So, Fred, which statement are you going to tackle?
I'm going to do the first one, communication. So am I starting?
Yep.
Okay, so the question is, describe a moment when you adapted your communication style for a specific group. Well, a moment when that happened recently was right here in this building. So I've been a forester most of my career, and I've served in state government. I've been involved in forestry leadership in this state, and I've been a supporter for a proposal to build a sustainable aviation fuel plant here in the city of Hayward that the state legislature passed an incentive package for, and that the Johnson Timber Company has been advocating for. But I'm also somebody who's worked with tribes and have a reasonable understanding of tribal issues. And in my meetings with tribal leadership, there has been a lot of concern about this project and a lot of lack of good communication. So I took it on myself to organize a listening session. We held it here at Lakuta Ray, where I invited the representatives from Johnson Timber, along with leadership of the Lakuta Ray tribe, including Jordan St. Germain, who was at that meeting, and Michelle Bodine, and members of the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission and Wisconsin DNR. And we spent time in that room for 2 hours, helping share understanding between the Johnson Timber folks describing this project and hearing from tribal leadership and tribal members about the concerns that they had about it. And it was a communication challenge. I'm so glad that I helped organize that. I didn't do it as a campaign event. I did it because I felt it would be valuable to bring those groups together. Tribal members talking about their expectations for the 7th generation, for protecting the spiritual and ecological values of forest land. Folks from Johnson Timber talking about the amount of tons of wood they wanted to bring in to make aviation fuel out of wood waste. You might as well have been speaking 2 different languages. And it takes a lot of communication and collaboration, information sharing to help those discussions. And I was glad to be able to have started that conversation.
Okay, before Ginger, you have a moment to work with your assessment sheet. Tell you what, we've got one table with deep thinkers. I love it. So deep they didn't hear what I just said. I'm kidding. All righty. So, Ginger, which skill set statement are you going to react to? And you have 2 minutes to do that.
Thank you. I would like to react to the skill set labeled experience. It asks, tell us about a time you navigated a political or bureaucratic system to get something done. After coming back to Wisconsin after law school. I worked my way through family law to the point where I was elected as the chairperson of the Children and the Law section of the state bar. In that role, I was afforded opportunities to testify and to participate in legislation. One of the pieces of legislation that I'm very proud of, because I was at the table for the debates, the discussion, the drafting, and getting the bill passed into law, was the Wisconsin ICWA. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's the Wisconsin Indian Child Welfare Act. Every federally recognized tribe had a stakeholder at the table. I was there to represent the children's section of the Wisconsin State Bar. It was not a quick process, but it was a very educational process. One of the main issues is that too often tribal children are removed from tribal homes. And we learned that we needed to rethink the definitions of family. Was family a tribe? Were aunts and uncles only the brothers and sisters of mom and dad, or did it go further than that? And so we had to explore the culture to better understand what definitions we should use before we would ever allow a court to consider removing a child from a tribal family. It was excruciating, tempers flared at times, not mine, but we passed that bill, and I'm very proud of the work that was accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. All right, back to you, assessment time.
Jerry, you said you'd only get 15 seconds for answering, not our time.
Come on, Mark. I didn't hear you.
I heard Mark say he thought that the folks would only have 15 seconds to reflect upon the answers.
Got it.
Since I have the microphone, can I ask a question? Are we going to do another round of this?
Yes.
Can I go first the next time?
I love it. Okay, we've now had 4 rounds of questions, and this is where, well, just because I have the mic, I know, right? So I'm going to pick one of the questions that I don't think were among the 4 that have been dealt with already. I'm going to ask each one to take 1 minute to respond to it. So let me make sure that you all have not dealt with this one.
Excuse me. I don't feel that 1 minute is adequate for them to expound.
Okay.
Anything.
What would you like?
Thank you, yes. Well, I think 3 minutes,
3 minutes,
is
maybe.
fine. Or the 2 minutes you were doing
Well,
is kind of putting them under the gun too, but 1 minute is, I don't think they can expound on anything. They just
Fair enough.
basically
What if we
keep
split the
going.
difference and make it 2 minutes?
Okay, thank you.
Is that fair?
Yes.
All right.
Appreciate
And
it.
be stricter with us answering. I think we can do it in 15 seconds and hold us accountable.
Okay. Yeah, I love the feedback. So the feedback is that in this next question that I want to make sure they've not dealt with yet, we'll give them 2 minutes to respond to that, and then give you 15 seconds to do the assessment. Is that where we are? Cool. Candidates. So I don't think you all have dealt with this one. I don't think. If you have, let me know. The candidate must understand the political system while remaining independent from entrenched interests. Have we dealt with that one?
Where is that one? And we're all asking that.
That's experience, and Ginger answered it.
I did that one.
But not
Tell us about a time you navigated a political or bureaucratic system to get something done. I just talked about it.
Got it. Then let's,
Would it help if I offered the
Yes.
ones we- So we haven't answered technology, environment, rural focus, kindness and compassion, respect, or authenticity.
okay. Thank you.
Happy to help.
You kept better track than I. Yes, sir.
I suggest rural focus because we're a rural area.
Okay. Let me put it to you all. Would you rather hear the rural statement or some other one? I'm putting it back to you all. Any preference in addition to the gentleman in the gray hat suggesting the rural question?
You'll get to more of them, right?
Well, we're gonna do this one, then we're gonna take a break. Or at least that's the plan. We can always change it.
Environmental stewardship. Yeah.
So that's rural and.
All right.
Are we picking 4?
No, we're gonna pick one that they have not answered. So far, we've got one under the rural focus. Someone else talked about technology, and then there was another suggestion. Environment. So, all right, so we have a few suggestions out. Technology, rural, and environment as a combined kind of question. What's your pleasure, folks?
Vote on it.
Give us 2 of them and we'll get
Vote.
All right, let's start with technology. Tell us a moment when technology helped you listen better, not just broadcast.
When did technology help me listen better, not just broadcast?
Yep.
Well, the pandemic caused my profession as a lawyer to switch to Zoom. And folks were somewhat in a panic about what that was going to mean. But before you knew it, you could learn that Zoom was a very reliable, helpful piece of technology. For example, it has a translation component to it. And so now, although we didn't have, somebody says that I talked, help me if I'm not speaking clearly in this microphone.
You're good.
As a result of using Zoom, it has a translation component. So now I could talk to folks, clients who spoke a different language. Also, for folks who are not able to hear or have difficulties hearing, I could run the captions below what the conversation was, even if it was the judge talking. So Zoom really allowed us to capture the entire dialogue of a meeting, quickly send out the information that was discussed, or help translate if I was speaking with someone who spoke a different language. That allowed me to listen to clients that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to listen to. And for clients who have ADA needs, we were able to better accommodate them than we were without that technology.
All right, 15 seconds to score. Okay, Fred, you're up. Should I read it again, or do you have it?
Pretty sure I got it.
Okay.
Am I done? Okay.
No.
Technology. So I have just been really interested in the experience of immigrants in our communities. And so this past winter, I was able to join a group of Wisconsin and Minnesota dairy farmers on a trip to central Mexico. And the purpose of that trip was to visit the families of the employees who work for these farms, these dairies, in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we visited probably 15 different homes. In most cases, these are men who travel north to the U.S. to work on farms for years at a time. And the way our cruel immigration system works is that when those folks are here in the States, they don't get to come home for a long time. They send their paychecks home and they talk to their families on a cell phone, usually every night. And it's mostly wives and mothers and grandmothers and children that are at home missing their fathers. There are some women working in the U.S. too, of course. But I watch these families communicate with their loved ones back home on a telephone, which is a daily occurrence. And it helped me realize, one, the strength of family values that holds those families together. And it also helped me realize how cruel the environment is for these people, that they have to arrange their lives that way just in order to help earn enough money to support their families. And this is why our immigration system is broken. This is why we need to fix our visa system to allow people to come here legally and work legally who are law-abiding. Technology saves those families and helps hold them together, but it's not a substitute for human love and contact.
Thank you, Fred. Niina.
So, starting at a young age, I always had an ambition to travel. I spent a summer in India volunteering at an animal hospital with my sister to help reduce the rate of rabies. Through my being as part of Team USA for dog sled racing, I've represented the country at world championship competitions around the world, and I've been the captain of our team and had to communicate across cultures. And I've also, for my job, I have to travel and lead people through different countries and different cultures. And one of the things that's really helped me navigate through all that is technology, especially translation technology. I am bilingual in Finnish, but that hasn't helped me much in a lot of the countries I've gone. It's a very specific language, but it's helped me in other areas. But having that ability to translate, to understand, to really connect with these people in different areas across different cultures really helped establish an understanding for their needs and the things that they're going through, which I'm also going to be tying into immigration like Fred did, because we're all just people. We're all just looking for the same things. We're all trying to make a living. We're all trying to build a life. We're all trying to build a family and figure out how the best way is to do that. And that is also why I've been advocating to ensure that we improve our immigration system. Right now there is a 3.3 million case backlog in our immigration courts. There's only 600 judges to see those cases. So people who are trying to go through the legal pathway are waiting years to find out whether they can actually come over here or not, or stay. And unfortunately, because of that backlog, some of these people have been detained even though they're going through the right pathways, and that's not correct, and we need to make sure that we're addressing that. We can have a strong border security, but we can do it with integrity and respect and ensuring that everybody is valued.
Okay, good. All right, well, this is a little interesting one because I'm in the technology business. And I'm an instructor and a coach. So basically, I get paid to tell people stuff. Either as, again, an instructor or someone providing constructive feedback or guidance to the work that they're doing. But, I guess the way I'm going to answer this is I always like to keep my eyes and ears open on what's going on across the world. So I am a voracious reader. So I read my phone in the morning, I get magazines, I've got my email, I got podcasts I listen to, I listen to the radio, so I'm really into getting, again, a widespread source of content. And then and perhaps you guys have found the same thing, but I get unsolicited emails through our website, and I personally answer every single one of them. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna, Mark?
Let's take a break.
Yeah, that's where we're headed. All right, here's where we are. I don't want to ignore the request for a rural environmental type question. So at the break, I'm going to get together with Mark. We're going to compose a question that touches on those two domains. You all get a 10-minute break, and including our candidates, and at 7:07 p.m., we're going to ask the candidates to be back, and we'll give them that question, and each one will have 2 minutes to answer the rural/environmental question. So, 10-minute break. Thanks.
Hi again. Nice to see you.
No, yeah, is it charged? I don't know. I'm charging the other one. But just know that
I gotta work. In fact, yeah, I know where to work. All right, 60 seconds, folks. We're gonna roll. All right, that was a quick 60 seconds, but hey, close enough. All right, so here are the program components that are left. I have, at Fred's suggestion, taken the environment and the rural questions and try to combine them into one. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to address that statement. I keep calling it a question, but it's really a statement. So there's that part. Then, as Mark is doing right now, each one of the candidates is going to draw one of your questions from a hat. So each one of the 4 candidates will have a question that you've written. We're going to start with, let's see, last time we started with Ginger. Let's start with Fred this time. And Fred is going to read the question that he drew, and each one of the candidates going to then to Niina, and then down to Chris, and then back to Ginger. Each one of the 4 will respond to the question that Fred has just drawn. No score sheet now. Then the final part is each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing remarks. Es claro?
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I maybe missed something. Are we going on the environment and rural questions first?
I'm going to give that to you now. All right, so I did my best to combine the rural and environmental questions. So here's the question. You don't have it in written form because I just wrote it. All right, so the question is, or the statement is, the candidate must understand rural life and be proactive in protecting our natural resources and demonstrate a willingness to continually deepen that understanding.
That's good.
Let me read it again. The candidate must understand rural life, be proactive in protecting our natural resources, and demonstrate a willingness to continually deepen that understanding. So we'll start with Fred, then we'll go to Niina, then we'll go to Chris, and we'll come back to Ginger on that. Now, before we do that, in case they get stuck on an answer, here's the answer. Here's the mechanism we're going to use. So let's just pretend that I just asked Ginger a question, right? So Ginger's kind of stumped. So we'll just roll the magic 8-ball, and we will see what the answer is. And it says, very doubtful. So,
Very doubtful. I will be on time to my next event. Just ask
that's my effort at comedic relief. I know. I didn't. All right. So you got the question. We'll start with Fred, and we'll move along.
Okay, got the question. You know, my whole career in Wisconsin, I've lived and worked in almost exclusively rural communities. As a forester, conservationist, ecologist, As I served in the state legislature, representing parts of Sauk and Columbia counties, but on that time I served on the Natural Resources Committee along with Representative Tom Tiffany. And in 2011, Tom Tiffany introduced a bill to open up iron mining in the Pinocchio Hills of Iron and Ashland counties, not that far from here. And if you were around this area in those years, you remember that that was a battle. They wanted to basically green light all the regulations to allow this company that from Illinois to come mine coal and reopen an open pit mine in the Pinocchio Hills and the Bad River watershed. And I led the opposition to that bill along with Senator Janet Bewley. And we had listening sessions up here where we spent a whole day with folks from Montreal and Hurley who were supportive of seeing that mine open, and we listened to their concerns and their understanding and their memories of the old mining days. And then we went and met with folks who were really concerned of what that mine was going to do, including a family down near Mellon who had a grass-fed beef operation, whose land would be affected by the spoil pits, or the huge amount of mine waste that would have been generated by that mine. And I came to realize that these issues are never easy. They always have multiple effects that we don't always all understand. But it also helped me realize how critical rural communities are in relying on the intact natural resources that we have. And what huge projects like that, and all the risks that they bring. I am grateful to this day that that mine was never built. And I'm also grateful for all the citizens who stood up to make it clear that this was not going to be in the interest of that community.
Okay, Niina.
All right. Well, I have spent pretty much my whole entire life in this district, which is a very rural district. Grew up on a dairy farm. I went to college in Ashland. I built a business here. I've been involved in my communities. So I really do understand what it means to live up here in a rural area. And I also, as I mentioned, went to Northland College, and I attended conserve school, both of which had a very environmental focuses. So a lot of my education always had an environmental focus, which is why I have become very passionate about this challenge that we are facing with AI data centers coming into Wisconsin. Wisconsin gave them a sales tax exemption on the materials for constructing them, and the projects that are approved are going to get we're going to lose out on about $1.5 billion. And then the amount of water that they use, not just the data centers, but the actual power plants that are going to be built to power these data centers, consume an insane amount of water. And that water comes from the Great Lakes. And we have to ensure that the Great Lakes Compact is not going to be jeopardized over this down the road as more and more of these come in. The other big thing I want to bring up and mention is, as I mentioned earlier, UW Trout Lake Station. I went and toured there. For 40 years, they have received funding from the National Science Foundation that was based on ecology type of research. This is the first year the National Science Foundation has not put out a call for ecology-based research. It is now all focused on AI. It is focused on machinery and technology and computing, and none of it's really based on the environment, which is a crucial thing up here. Our natural resources are what make the Northwoods in this district so special and unique. And so if elected, I would be making sure to fight to ensure that we get funding back for these types of studies for the district, and a moratorium on AI data centers.
Thanks. Chris?
All right, well, I grew up on the Apple River since I was 5 years old, and can't imagine, have grown up any other way, but I understand it's not an opportunity that a lot of people had. Like when the weather was so hot, we didn't have air conditioning, and we pretty much spent, I swear, all day and all night in the river. And that's, something I want to preserve, for future generations, including, my grandson, who happens to live on that same river across the river from where my mom lives. Interestingly enough, we are at about the 50-year anniversary of when I was in 4-H. And I won the championship junior doe goat of the Polk County Fair in 1976. Also milked goats, cleaned stalls, picked rocks, helped with baling hay. So again, a pretty privileged life living here. And I want that for all future generations, and I think we need to do whatever we can to protect that. And so, like, for example, one of the things, related to how we've addressed, not that one. Moment when you've advocated for environmental protection despite political risk. Well, I don't really care about political risk, seriously, because you guys are going to make a decision based on character, principles, which is There is no place for explorative mining in the North Woods, ever. Ever. And so, this administration, as you may know, has loosened that moratorium in northern Minnesota, but there's just too much water here. It just makes no freaking sense. There is no amount of money and no amount of jobs that makes it worth doing any mining in the 7th District ever under any circumstance.
All right, Ginger.
And will you remind me the time limit on this? I'm sorry.
All right, 2 minutes.
It goes so slow when they're talking.
Well, I've got the magic 8-ball.
I'm good. All right, start. Here we go. Environment and rural focus. Okay, folks, I grew up here, right? I was born in Eau Claire, and I grew up in the Northwoods in Forest County, where I fished, hunted, did the maple syrup, everything with my mom and dad, whether at the house or up at the cabin. It's just what I know. So of course I'm going to try and protect it for you. Things that I've proactively done since Girl Scouts. I've been out there in the woods doing what folks are supposed to do to learn how to conserve and protect. When I came back from law school, it was right about the time that the Crandon mine was trying to get in. And so I stood with 2 tribal leaders from tribes that didn't usually work together, but we all stood together against that Crandon mine. I will continue to do so. The question that was asking about the rural focus, give an example of how you've addressed challenges like broadband, healthcare, or transportation. Broadband is a bugger. When my profession counts on me to be able to be available by cell phone or internet, I don't know, it's been hard to explain to folks how difficult it is, except for Judge Winton in Washburn County, because one day she told me they didn't have internet that day in Washburn County Courthouse. So folks understand what's happening. I got to meet with my cousin, Craig, who's actually the project manager at the Mole Lake Tribe for 2 projects. Number 1, their remodel for their medical facility, and number 2, they beat out charter for the BEAD program, which will be bringing in broadband beyond the reservation. So I am acutely aware of the need. I am also very involved in the conversation about how it's going to be met at the local level, and you have my word that I will help you from the federal level to both protect the environment. EPA will be reaffirmed. Clean Air Act means something, Clean Water Act means something, and I'll do everything I can to make sure those are honored. I beat the time. All right, done.
All right. Next step. Each one of them has drawn a question from the hat. We'll start with Niina. She will read the question that she drew, and then each one of the 4 candidates will address that question, starting with Niina, then on to Chris, Ginger, then Fred. Niina.
Okay, what will be your 3 most passionate priorities if elected?
How much time do we have? 2 minutes.
All right, my 3 most passionate priorities. There's a lot, but I will try to boil it down. Well, first, I already touched on it a little bit, but a moratorium on AI data centers. There are no federal standards or regulations in place on them right now. Mining has more regulation than AI data centers, shockingly. And so I think it's so important that we actually understand the impacts that they're having on our water and our land and our resources. How much energy are they really using? How much water are they using? How are they affecting affordability and pricing? We Energies was wanting residents, ratepayers here in the state to put 25% of the bill for new power plants that were directly going to be going to powering these data centers. That's not right. So there needs to be a moratorium until we have actual federal regulations in place. Next up is Social Security benefits. This district, we have to look at it realistically. It is a rural district and it has a more aging population in it. Social Security benefits are very critical to our economy up here. If there are cuts to the benefits, that would be a really big hit to a lot of our rural communities. So I would like to see us raising the cap on how much you contribute on your income. And then the other thing is housing that I'm going to focus on. So right now, it is really difficult for people to buy an affordable home or build an affordable home. From the local level all the way up to the federal level, there are changes that we need to make. This isn't going to be solved at one level of government. It needs to be a unified push between all different levels. In Oneida County, a quarter of the land is Zone Forestry 1A, which means that you can build a home on it, but you can't live in it year-round. That does not help people who want to live here year-round. And I have way more to say on that, but...
All right, 3 priorities. Number 1 priority, the federal government must follow the law and the U.S. Constitution. And the consequence of that is that President Trump and his cabinet members must be removed from office for their crimes against the United States and American citizens. Because, real simple, you know, when I'm seated in the next Congress, what is the point of passing any new laws? They do not obey the current laws. You think they're going to obey new laws? No. So we got to take care of issue number 1. A passion also is healthcare. You know, as a small business owner, I had you know, felt it was pretty critical to provide the best healthcare I possibly could to my employees. And it may not have been the right business decision, but to me it was the right moral decision. So I provided, you know, premium healthcare plans to all of my employees for all of their family members and spouse, 100% employer paid. Again, pretty darn expensive, but felt like the right thing to do. And there's so many to choose from, of course, I'm sure for all of us. But you know, getting back to things that are really un-American and violating the integrity of our aspiration as a more perfect union is we got to abolish ICE. I mean, this is an organization that is corrupt from the bottom to the top. There is no hope of reform. You know, the officers that murdered Alex Preddy, you know, in Minneapolis, they were not new hires. They are 7 and 12-year-old veterans of CBP. So this is not a training problem, it is a cultural problem. And so, it doesn't mean we don't need immigration enforcement, but this organization cannot be reformed. So we need to start over from scratch. And I had a novel idea. Maybe every immigration official needs to pass the same U.S. citizenship test that immigrants have to pass.
Yeah.
Ginger.
3, defend democracy. Hold people who are not following the Constitution or the law accountable. The easiest way to do it is not Amendment 25. It is not an impeachment. It is to work with the 96 ladies in the Democratic caucus and the women in the Republican caucus who have already joined efforts to unveil their colleagues who've been using taxpayer dollars in the slush fund to secretly settle claims of sexual misconduct. Once people are under pressure that that's coming their way, they will rat out the people who are involved in the Epstein files. Epstein files is how we unravel this crappy administration. Number 2, tackle affordability. 2 ways. One is to reduce costs, give access to quality health care, affordable housing, reduce prices for gas and groceries, and conquer affordability of daycare, meaningful wages, scrap the cap on Social Security, and tax reform. Right now, we, the working people of rural America, are paying a higher percentage of taxes than the billionaires, millionaires, and the trillionaire in this country. My first commercial was me pulling out my shotgun, shooting at a ceramic piggy bank that said, blast tax breaks for billionaires. Number 3, we've already talked about the environment, so I'm gonna go on to education. We need to work on fully funding education and making it a safe place for children. My daughter has twice been, not in a drill, but in an active shooter threat situation where our government sat by and offered thoughts and prayers. We need to do better for our kids. Thank you.
Well, this is a tough one because the federal government in the last year and a half has failed at almost every single thing we need government to do. But we have to pick three. I'll start with our health. And healthcare in this country had a lot of gaps in that safety net before 2025, but this administration has blown holes in it with Ginger's shotgun. And the killing of eliminating the tax credits through Affordable Care Act has already caused millions of people to drop coverage because it's simply become unaffordable. And the coming $800 billion cut to Medicaid that's going to kick in at the end of this year after the November 3rd election, it's going to be devastating. It means millions of Americans will lose coverage because of burdensome work requirements that can't be met. And it means the rural clinics and hospitals that are dependent on Medicaid revenue, many more of them are going to close. More providers are going to leave communities. And every single one of us will be affected regardless of where we get our health care coverage. Coverage is no good if you can't get the care. So Congress is going to have to fix it. We start by restoring funding for those programs, and then we have to have the vision to figure out how to provide health care for everybody. Housing and affordability, agreeing with all of my colleagues here, every community I go in, the ability to find a home that people can afford is one of the single biggest limiting factors in the fact that our rural communities can't prosper. Employers can't fill the jobs they need, whether it's teachers or nurses or county employees or businesses. Federal government's got to help jumpstart affordable housing through construction, through easing regulations, through funding the Housing Trust Fund and allowing communities to get this work done. And then we got to deal with corruption. The absurd violations of federal law that are being celebrated by this president and his family need to be accounted for, and people need to be brought to justice, and Congress can start that work.
All right, so Chris will read the question that he drew from the hat. He will answer that question, and then we'll come to Ginger and work down the road.
Jerry, you got another microphone.
So the question is about veterans and women's health care. I think that generally is about health care. Generally speaking, I have been astounded at how, from what I can see, how poorly veterans' needs have been served pretty much forever. I mean, I know there's veterans in the audience, and you guys probably know better than I. We have had promises from so many different administrations that people that have made, ultimate sacrifice, or those that came back with serious injuries, life-altering injuries, aren't getting the health care that they need, and I just don't freaking get it, to be quite honest. I mean, again, it's an issue of resources. The downsizing that's been done in the Veterans Administration lately, and as many of you may know, I think like 75% of the employees of the VA are veterans. Again, particularly in a rural area, things like telehealth and things like that are going to having select choice options only is going to help possibly if there actually are doctors available. So, in this, because we're in one of the most rural parts of Wisconsin, there needs to be serious investments in infrastructure. If you have to drive 1 or 2 hours to get care or emergency, or to, give birth to a baby, I mean, that's not 21st century, what we expect from the 21st century. As far as women's health care, reproductive health is health care. No ifs, ands, or buts. whether it's IVF, in vitro fertilization, IVF, abortion care, whatever. These are medical services that people need in order to start and grow a family, and those are decisions between a woman, her family, and her doctor.
Ginger.
All right, I'm just going to trust you, Mark. I don't have my timer on. Healthcare is something we should all be able to count on. When you are putting tax dollars into the system, you deserve to have something back for that, and healthcare is just a fundamental right. As it relates to women's healthcare, it is shocking that in my home county of Forest County, you have to travel across the county line if you want to have any health care that has to do with reproduction. It is ridiculous. I very much support a woman's right to make her medical decisions in all areas. I have shared before my example. It took my husband and I much longer than we expected to get pregnant. I spent a whole lot of time on bed rest because they thought I might have been pregnant with twins and lost one, and placenta abortion, this, that, the other thing. Never would it have occurred to me that a politician should have any say in what my husband and I decided to do about what was happening with our first child. As it relates to veterans, I am friends with many veterans. I'm endorsed by veterans. It is very sad to learn that the folks who fought for our freedoms struggle to get the health care that they need, that they have to travel several hours sometimes to get to a facility, and that might just be to get your blood drawn and your urine analysis, and then you have to come back 3 days later to get the results. That's just ridiculous, and folks deserve better. Our federal government owes it to our women, our veterans, our children, our families to offer affordable, quality health care. I know some of you, they aren't.
What Ginger said, my colleague, who I have great trust on this issue, but yeah, with regard to women's health care, women suffer inordinately because of the lack of general health care in this country. And so when we fail health care in general, women suffer more. So we need to fund health care. We need to ensure that rural communities have access to the specialists and the providers. And we need to support a full range of reproductive health care for women of all ages. In the federal government, it's clear that the Dobbs decision has created a massive suffering and burden for women who in many cases are driving hundreds of miles across multiple state lines to access reproductive care or an abortion. And in some cases at the risk to their own health, because in the states where they live, doctors are unwilling to treat them because they're afraid of committing a felony and going to jail. There is so much wrong with that picture. So Congress needs to codify Roe v. Wade, or in federal law, we need to make the reasonable right to an abortion something that's an unquestionable fact of federal law. And with regard to our veterans, yep, you all said it. My colleague here, Doug, who's with me tonight, is not here at the moment, but will tell you as a veteran that he waits weeks and weeks for appointments right now. Somewhere between 30 and 40,000 staff members have left the VA in the last year and a half. So even when you don't change the law, if you get rid of a whole lot of capacity in an agency, you can't deliver the law, and you can't deliver the benefits that veterans have earned and deserve. And that is happening all over this country. Wisconsin alone has lost something like 600 healthcare providers within our VA system in this administration. Yeah, it's shameful, and we need to do better. Our next Congress has got to restore that.
I had a listening session with a group of veterans a few weeks ago, and one of the biggest things they kept bringing up that was a challenge was their health care. My grandfather was a veteran, and he in Madison utilized the VA hospital very frequently, and it was a huge benefit to him, but he was lucky to have a good VA option down there. I know that that's not reflected everywhere. And so you guys have put your life on the line and put your bodies and your mental health through so much for this country that should easily be given back to you in the form of health care. And so I would advocate for the needs that you have around that. When it comes to women's rights or women's health care, when Roe v. Wade was overturned and Wisconsin had in place a very archaic law, I felt that I couldn't believe it when I found out what the laws we had in place were. And I'm very glad that Wisconsin has since updated it to what I feel is very fair for everybody. I think they found a good middle ground. The other things I want to address in healthcare are price transparency. How can we expect prices to be fair and to know what we're going to be paying when we don't even know what our bills are until a couple weeks later when we get it in the mail? If we had more price transparency for people to be able to know what they're going to be paying before they go to get a procedure, that would help drive down costs, because now you could price shop, and that would make it so that different providers would then need to adjust so that people will come to them. I also want to reform pharmacy benefit managers. They are what's driving out our small independent pharmacies in our communities. It's driving all the money to the corporate pharmacies like CVS, because they're all intertwined and owned by the other, and if one makes money, then the other one does. So I would like to see us reform our pharmacy benefit managers. And I was going to talk about consolidation, but guess another time.
All right. So before we go to the last part, I'm going to put you back to work. Come on, grab a partner. It's short. Come on, stand up. Stand up. Grab a partner. Someone you know or don't know. Someone who owes you money. All right. So here's the deal. When I was growing up in D.C., whenever someone did something that was like really cool, we had a little way to celebrate that thing. It's like a momentary victory. Now I'm going to teach it to you. It's real quick. There are 3 parts to it. You ready this? Oh, sorry. All right. So there are 3 parts to this little victory dance, if you will. The first part is you face your partner. Second part is you hold your hand up and wiggle your fingers together, like that. The second part is you lean back with attitude when you wiggle your fingers. The third, the final part is you go, hey. Hey. So I'm going to barge in. Come on. So it looks something like this. You go like, hey. So your turn. Do it. Hey. So that's just a little victory dance. When we prevail on November 3rd, we'll be doing a lot of those victory dances. All right. Final part.
Wait, are we doing our questions?
Yes. No. Are we done with the questions? No. If we have time for the 3-minute closing remarks for each candidate. We'll start with Ginger. You have 3 minutes to just go for it.
I was ready for this question. All right, give me a second. Don't start until I start saying something. Hold on. Hey. All right, I'm ready. All right.
You might.
Oh. Don't start until I say something.
Yeah, that's good.
Now I'm going to use my timer.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here, for what you're doing, all 16 committees that are out there, being interested, curious, and activated to make sure that we get out as many people as possible to the polls. Second, I want to thank you for what you've already done. By electing Susan Crawford, while the world was watching that election, we told the world elections are not for sale. I think the most difficult thing in the United States is that we as candidates are asked to talk to you about affordability while millions and billions of dollars are being spent in a corrupt governmental election process. We need to get rid of the dark money. We need to set the amount of money that every candidate will have. We need to limit terms. We need to go back to we the people have the power. You all set the tone. You decide this, not corporate money. Next. What sets me apart from my opponents is I am not a polished politician. There are some very wonderful answers up here, and I think you would be well served if any one of us win. It's going to be a good day if one of us wins. I am asking for you to consider granting me your vote. I've hoped that I've earned it. Here's what I have to offer to you. 30 years of experience as a legal advocate, not the kind that works for corporations, the kind that represented the best interest of children, that worked with tribal stakeholders to make the law fair in a culturally sensitive way. A person who studied for 2 years environmental law and got a scholarship to go to Washington, D.C., offered by the American Bar Association. I have created laws. I have created new money for the city that I represented, new money for the county that I represented and worked for. I am ready to take this on. I have wanted to be in politics for a long time. I was mentored by Senator Roger Bresky, Dave Obey, Herb Cole came in, Russ Feingold came in. I had amazing mentors. The thing was, the election was right after I was getting married, so I was a little preoccupied. So in 2000, I had 2 major events, my first election cycle and a wedding. I'm pleased to report one of those went really well. I've been married successfully for 27 years, 2 girls, and my husband and I agreed that after the difficulty of having a child, we were going to be completely focused on them until they're out of the house. Now's my time. I'm ready. I hope you'll let me represent you in DC. Thank you.
Am I done? Okay. I guess that joke only works once, really. Thank you all for coming out. You know, we've had a lot of forums together. I truly also believe that every single one of us would serve you with distinction in Congress next year. And whoever gets there, we'll all be behind. It was never my dream to go to Washington. I didn't spend years thinking about doing this, but I'm doing it because what I see happening in our country right now appalls me. We're at an unprecedented moment. And we don't know what happens next. I just know that we all need to be smart and strategic and focused if we're going to restore democracy in America. And I want to be part of that movement, and I know that I have something to offer. This is a conservative district. It's been represented by Republicans for the last 15 years with a very strong slant due to gerrymandering. But this is an unprecedented year. And people throughout this country and throughout northern Wisconsin are being affected by this administration in so many different ways. We have people's attention. And there are the thousands of voters out there throughout the north who are ready to make a different vote this year are there, and we just need to make a better offer, and we need a candidate who can make that better offer. You know, winning this district doesn't need a middle-of-the-road candidate. I'm a candidate who's strong and clear in my democratic values. I'm not a career politician, but this isn't my first rodeo either. I have served in the state legislature. I know what it takes to run a winning campaign. I know what it takes to have a clear line about what you stand for and also be able to relate to people across the political spectrum in a way that will allow them to trust you And any one of us who comes out of this primary is going to need to be able to do that. I'm really proud of the campaign that I've helped build. We've got an incredible staff, incredible group of volunteers. Over 1,500 people have made contributions to my campaign as individuals, and I have made a commitment not to take corporate PAC money and special interest money, as have others of my colleagues up here at this table. None of us will have the most money, but having the most supporters makes a huge difference. I've been honored to be endorsed by mayors, county supervisors, tribal leaders, and current and former congresspeople, including 41-year Congressman David Obey, who's kind enough to have endorsed my campaign, and current Representative Mark Pocan, one of 2 Democrats serving in Congress for Wisconsin right now. I'm honored for all that support, but it just makes me motivated to work harder to go out and earn it. I'd love to represent you all next year in Congress. Thank you.
It's not lost on me that I'm the only Republican candidate here today. And I'm the only Republican candidate that's gone to all of the bipartisan debates as well. Because the job of a representative is to represent the people in this district. And I am saddened to see that the others on my side have not embraced that. I am a principles and people first candidate in this race. I truly do believe in the founding principles of the party under Lincoln. One of his most famous quotes is malice towards none and charity for all. And he had a great vision for the party that I want to bring back and make sure we continue to further. When 60 to 80% of Americans agree on policy change, we only get it 40% of the time. That's too low. When we actually agree, so this goes to show that we agree on a lot more things, and there's a lot that we want that we don't get, even though that's what we want. And why is that? Well, as Ginger alluded to very strongly, is that corporate PAC money since Citizens United. One of the worst decisions that has been made. The amount of money that has gone into congressional races has gone up 800%. The average cost is $2 million. That really limits who runs and the type of representation that we get. My opponents, I feel, were not in this race for the right reasons. One ran in a different district and moved here to run again, obviously chasing a political career without really understanding what it is like to be up here. Another has zero experience and has been funded with $3.5 million through special interests and is doing this because of the family he married into, not because he's passionate about this community. I hope to bring positivity to the party and to do what is right from within. And I'm really excited to announce that this week I was actually endorsed by the Forward Party. Their motto is not left, not right, but forward. And their focus is on how you conduct yourself as a representative.
How much time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right. So my journey started in February 2025 after, 3 minutes, okay. And when after Trump was inaugurated and the flurry of illegal, unconstitutional executive orders came out of the White House, and Elon Musk was illegally taking, a sledgehammer to the federal government. I was sitting in my house, doom scrolling on my phone, watching the news, about ready to pull my hair out, but because nobody was doing anything. It just was astounding. No one was doing anything. Didn't expect much from the Republicans, but the Democrats weren't doing anything either. So I made up my own protest sign in February 2025, went down to the busiest intersection in Richmond at rush hour, and I started protesting by myself because at least I was getting out of my house. It was a little performative, but it was also cathartic. But then with the election of Susan Crawford approaching on April 1st, 2025, I felt I couldn't sit on my butt, cross my fingers, and hope everything would all work out like I'd done so many times before. So started engaging with the St. Croix County Democrat Party, knocking on doors to get the vote out. And then, of course, to hard work, I'm sure by many of you guys as well, Susan Crawford prevailed. 10-point shift to the left, statewide. That then led me to found New Richmond Indivisible, one of the 16 organizations that is sponsoring this. I've had to step back, of course, from a leadership position in that because you can't run for Congress and be a member of that at the same time. But what I've learned from that is people are pissed, really pissed. And it's not just Democrats, because guess who else showed up at our protest? Republicans and independents. And when I stepped down from leadership, it was actually a former truck voter, Republican, stepped up and is one of the co-leaders. So one of the theme songs of my campaign, a real popular Bob Dylan song, the times they are a-changing, and they are changing. One of the reasons I'm doing this is I'm a grandfather for the first time. He's 18 months old now, but I think of a time in like 10 years when he's starting to get better oriented about the world around him, and he says, "Gee, Grandpa, I heard things pretty crazy when I was born. What did you do?" And I want to be able to look him in the eye and say, I did everything I possibly could to make this a better place for you, your parents, our family, and our communities. We got a long road ahead of us. I feel the way things are going and the trajectory we're on, 2026 is the year of the people. This is the year we, as American citizens, are going to band together and demand change, that our government represents the needs of real people. And I appreciate all your support.
All right, let's give them applause.
Can I take the microphone unexpectedly, not for my own behalf? It is Chris Armstrong's birthday tomorrow. Can we sing happy birthday to him?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Dear Chris. Happy birthday to you.
I love it. I love the impromptu nature of these things. All right, as we close out, I promised Timothy that I would give him 2 minutes to talk about a project he's involved with. Timothy and the folks he works with, one of our coalition partners within the Winning Wisconsin 7 Coalition. He's going to talk to you for like 2 minutes about what will happen next. Before he does that, thank you all, particularly for putting up with my shtick. Thanks.
Yeah, we're not experts, but we're doing our best, right? And I'm a retired teacher, a retired farmer, a retired nurse. I couldn't quite find my niche, and then I found social justice activism because, like my friends here, and like all of you, I presume, we're aware that we're in deep trouble. And I could vote for any one of these people. And even the Republican, which is kind of, yeah, this is a new switch, yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm nonpartisan, I shouldn't have said that, let me retract. It's all good, I'm amongst friends, right? But I really believe that it's time for us to build a movement, and one of the things that needs to be central to that movement, yes, the environment, yes, the economy, justice, economic justice, yes, democracy. I got your attention, right? Yes, peace. We didn't hear about genocide once in this whole 2 hours we've been up here. And our country is complicit in killing indigenous people in the Middle East in a horrific way, unconstitutionally. We have not talked about that because there's a taboo against standing up against violent militarism in our country. We're a country that's built on militaristic violence. It's in our streets, it's in our government, and it's what our country was built on. Land theft and genocide. And we got to get real about it. And I believe that each one of these candidates is willing to do that, so I'd have a hard time voting for you. But we need to build a people's movement that's not afraid to say there's an end to genocide in our lifetime. And we need those trillions of dollars we're supporting genocide with to come home and feed the people in our country. And we need courage for that. So we're building a people's movement. It's called Building Unity, or that's a project that's trying to do it. It's trying to get the Indivisibles and the Leagues of Women Voters and all the pro-peace people and planet groups together. Because ultimately we need clean water, we need good schools, we need fair jobs that pay living wages, and we need to stop killing each other. Thank you so much. So the bus is out here, we're touring the state. We're taking we're making at least 50 tour stops in 20 straight weeks. And we're having conversations with people everywhere we go. We're listening and we're talking about building a people's movement that Democrats and Republicans can't ignore. Because when the people stand up and form a movement that's about something more than just, the price of gas, but rather the price of living and passing on a living world to our children, then we're going to have something that the Democrats and the Republicans will listen to. Amen. Thank you.
The bus is on the parking lot, and I've got tiny flyers about the bus where you can get more information. We'll share them if anybody wants it. We've got a sign-up sheet if you want to hear more. We really want everybody everywhere to get involved and follow the tour. We're making a documentary movie about the voices of the people. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all once again. Thank you to my sisters from League of Women Voters. Thanks to our wonderful candidates. Good night.